Adam Zansi, once again, Hollywoodbets brings you GameON, and my oh my, it's been GameON in as far as the leagues out in England, and right here in South Africa. We will have a special guest for you today in Roger Desard later on in the show. But for now, we're talking all things English football. Later on, we'll talk what's happening locally with Jerry Skosana. Shane McGregor kicks things off. Shane, good to be in your company. Let's talk about it. 2 weeks in a row now, City's dropped points. Newcastle United make their first real statement of the season. Yes, they didn't win, but City dropped points here.
City dropped points again, and people are saying, what's going on? I'll put it down to one thing. They're missing their best player. They're missing the best midfielder by far, I think, in world football at the moment. And it's causing a big problem. He hasn't quite adjusted to it yet, and that's the big problem. And you can't say one player makes a team, but for them, he does everything right. Rodri. That's where the big problem comes in. Yeah.
So over the years, they've had Silva. When he got old, De Bruyne took over. Then the transition was there with Rodri to pick up, and before Silva, Yaya Toure. Are you saying now it's time to look for someone to maybe start to pick up the pieces in Rodri's absence at City?
Yeah, different ways of playing though. You see, when you're talking about De Bruyne and Silva and that stuff, and they're the go-forward guys. Rodri's the guy that defends in front of the defense, does all the hard work, does all the tackles, does everything, passes the ball to those guys so they can create. He's the guy that does it. He's the guy that gets goals as well. He goes forward to get some goals. He's their kingpin in midfield. And unfortunately, they haven't got someone to come in for that position. So we'll see. You know what Pep's like. He'll probably get John Stones to go play some midfield now.
Yeah, he'll make a plan.
He'll make a plan. He'll always make a plan.
Now, for Arsenal, for a team that's maybe, let's say, looking to be in the championship run at the end of it all, it's important when your opponent, like City, drops points, to pick up points. 4-2, they thrashed Leicester City. Again, they're scoring goals, Arsenal, and they're looking exciting, entertaining again.
Well, didn't thrash them. They were 2-2 going into the dying moments of their game and got 2 late goals. But that shows you it's a good team to find a way to get the victory. And, Arsenal's going to be there, always going to be there. I said in the beginning of the year, and I was going to stick to this, I think Arsenal will win the league this year.
Chelsea 4-2 themselves in their win over Brighton. Liverpool beat Wolves with a 2-1 scoreline. We expected those two sides to go through and continue with a good start to the season. Any surprises there for you?
No surprise. Chelsea being one of those teams where they seem to now be being consistent, which is a good thing. You've got to keep the consistency. They've got a good couple of youngsters in their team, but they have been consistent, getting results, and that's the main thing for them. They've just got to keep going.
I say that to say this. Tottenham Hotspur go away to Manchester United, and well, us as Manchester United fans are just suffering now. You thought draw when you spoke about this fixture last week. Tottenham walked away 3-0 winners. Now, what was the surprising factor here for you?
Well, that Man United got 3 only. Should have been a lot more.
Yeah, could have been.
I watched the game. Should have been a lot more. I was very surprised with that game. I thought the two teams were a lot closer. Man United at the moment are dismal.
Somewhere off, yeah?
I don't know. For me, if it was South Africa, the coach would have been fired already. But
I want to talk about the most under pressure club in England right now. Is it Ten Hag?
Ten Hag's the most pressure of all. He's brought in players, he's spent money, and he's still not getting results. There seems to be a little rift between him and the change rooms, and that's a big problem for me. Once you lose that change room, you're in big trouble. And that's. I'm not too sure. I'm talking out of turn. I'm talking about what I see. I actually think that's happened, is that he's lost the change room, run out of ideas.
Well, now, quickly, it's just started. Palace-Liverpool. Palace have had a slow start to the season. Liverpool, again, had a pretty good start to the season.
Palace is always a bogey team for Liverpool. So one to be careful of. But I think the way Liverpool are playing at the moment, they'll get the job done.
Arsenal, Southampton. We've always loved our Southampton offers in the way of talent spotting for the big clubs, but do you see them surviving some of the big guns this season? Arsenal to start with.
They'll give them a hard game, but at the end of the day, Arsenal will come out the victors of that one. I don't think it's going to be a massive 4-5. I think it'll be very close, but I think Arsenal will get the victory and get the job done. City
play Fulham. Are you expecting any fireworks there? Any upsets?
This is going to be an interesting game. Initially I said Man City are going to win it. But having looked at it and gone through everything and studied again, I think another draw could be on the cards, because Fulham are a decent team and they've been playing well. They haven't been given up as easy as that. So I would be leaning towards Man City, but don't be surprised if it's not a draw.
I had to talk to you about Aston Villa. Over the last couple of seasons, you and I have been in agreement. We say it week in and week out. For those that maybe are looking for a team to be the dark horse of the season, we say Aston Villa. And we're in agreement again this season. They're up against Manchester United, who've just taken 3 against Tottenham at home. It doesn't look as though there's a light at the end of the tunnel anytime soon for Ten Hag. Yeah?
Nah, and we've been waxing lyrical about this coach. He's brilliant, and he's bought wisely.
Yeah.
For a team to beat Bayern midweek in the European Cup, Bayern have been unbeaten in over 20 years.
Yes.
Coming up against English opposition in England, and for Aston Villa to go beat them 1-0 just shows you how far they have progressed. This man is brilliant. Once again, if he can keep the squad going, keep injury free, they're going to be very close up there. They're going to surprise a good few teams this year.
Why
They'll be in the top 4-5.
Why do so well at Aston Villa when struggled at some of the bigger clubs? Arsenal, I think it was in the past.
Yeah, because it's a different type of club. He's come in and he's taken charge. When you go to Arsenal and rest, you're not allowed to implement everything you want. You've got the so-called stars, you've got the way things have been run. He's come into Aston Villa and he said, guys, we're running it this way, my way or no way. And that's the difference. I mean, training has been different, the food's been different, sleeping habits different, everything has changed. And that's the difference. When you take charge and you give your man in charge the opportunity to do it, it makes a big difference.
I have to ask you about Chelsea. Are you seeing them as a factor in the top 4 race this season? They are up against Nottingham Forest.
If they can keep the consistency going, my big worry is I've got a lot of youngsters.
A lot of talented youngsters.
But that's the problem. Youngsters wane off, they play well for a while and then they seem to slip off. If they can keep the consistency, they'll be up there. And they have been doing it of late. A team I like watching because of the way they play.
So there's 2 teams you should maybe keep an eye on outside of those that are in the league race. Aston Villa's one. Chelsea's another that will come up with a surprise or 2 out in England this season. So thank you very much to Shane McGregor. Wow, interesting times out in England. On the other side of this, we talk about the fireworks that are happening right here in Mzansi.
Check these guys. Let's show them how to do that. I see it. Let's have a
your feet like this.
Let's see how you play.
Your feet like this.
Welcome back. Now, there's been fireworks in as far as the local scene in the football scene all around the country, and it's all down to, well, it starts with last weekend what happened at the FNB Stadium, joined by Dennis Kosana, and let's talk about it now. Kaizer Chiefs, Bloemfontein, great crowd, late kickoff because of a great crowd, great game. By KZN, at Durban, pretty much the same. Late kickoff, great crowd, great game. Now, everyone's looking at FNB, Sundowns. Chiefs get off to a great start. Again, late kickoff. But Sundowns come back and make quite a game of it. We win against Leke.
Yes, thanks, bro. For me, I would say this was like a good showing for South African football. It was just a spectacle for me because you don't have to get into the game itself, but you look at the electrifying moments that were happening, stadium being full. You remember what happened last season when Kune was given a send-off and they played Amazulu, the stadium was empty. So if Kune was like in this situation of what happened when Chiefs were playing Sundowns over the weekend, I think for me, that was just something superb. Ngikuthande kakhulu okwenzakele lapha for ibhola lethu la eMzansi.
Now, end of the first half, Chiefs have scored 1 goal. They've only had 1 shot on target. So it was mostly Sundowns dominating first half. But by the end of the game, Odon Williams is the man of the match.
For me, if you look back, Sizwe, when they played Imaromo Gallants in Free State, Chiefs were brilliant in the first half, scoring all those goals. But second half, they just faded. They were not the same team, but maybe because they scored early. Same thing happened again in KZN, Moses Mabhida Stadium. You know, when they played Amazulu, they scored early. Second half, they were not the same team. So I think that's where, if we go back to what Mangoba Mniti planned against, maybe he was saying, let's hold them in the first half and try and contain them so that in the second half we know they always decline. But Chiefs, for me, it was good for them to score early, but they left it before halftime to concede those 2 goals. But for me, now, I can give credit to Unabi, honestly speaking, as a good coach. Because when Chiefs came back, we expected for Chiefs to be worse because second half they don't give a good showing. But they were the better team. For Ronnie Williams to be a man of the match, it was because of Chiefs' attack. And also, for me, comparing from last season to this season, Chivaviro for me, he's a different player.
Strong performance, yeah?
Mentally, strikers, omen that is God in him. I think into maybe I need credit to the boy as well.
Some could argue that they're playing to his strengths as well, the Kaizer Chiefs. But let's talk about the Pirates. We've seen the strikers are in top form. 2 strikers that are finding the back of the net. Left, right, they're finding the back of the net as wingers, centrally as well behind their strikers. But Udlamini now adds something extra from a dead ball situation. The Pirates has got many ways to hurt you.
Many ways, because Umawibugi Pirates, they can hurt you with the winger, which is Mofokeng. They can hurt you with the winger, which is Saleng. But they still have 2 big guns that they believe they can score anytime in Mabasa and Mahopa. But let's give credit also to Dlamini in the middle of the park. Because when he gets the chance to come and play, he's lucky because there are dead ball situations that are happening. I don't know if Pirates are planning that because normally they would go take people on and any touch, anything closer to the 18, then they just fall for the referee to bite because they know now they've got this strong player in Dlamini. But Unda, for me also a good leader, a good captain. Honestly, I want to put him on the fold again because he did score a goal as well.
I want to talk about EKZ then. Golden Arrows got off to a good start, opening 2 games. They've now lost 2 in a row. Amazulu, their struggles continue to a point where a coach parts way with the team after they lose to a struggling Maromo Gallus this season. What's happening? Where's the Gala in EKZ?
Hey, I couldn't say. You'll never know what's going on in EKZ. And honestly, for me, same South African problem. The coach loses, the coach gets fired. Who's going to take over? It might be somebody maybe from their own DDC, Amazulu, or maybe, I don't know, somebody who's still not going to be there for a long time. But really, this is just something like a merry-go-round in South Africa. Let's look at Richards Bay. What happened with Vilakazi for Truta to come back. Let's look at, I think, Maromo Gallants itself. I mean, there was the English guy that was there preparing the team early.
Before the season
but
started,
later on, it was 10-10s. So I think it's something which we need to look at.
In Amazulu in particular, since Baini, who did well, I mentioned him because he did very well, took them to the continent for the first time, made history with them. They've always had a strong team on paper, hence they got to the CAF Champions League or the CAF competitions, I should say. But I'm a coach that keeps evolving. Where you've got such a strong team on paper, but
I wouldn't know. But I can always take it to the technical team because they do have good playing personnel. But I don't know. I've seen Mubara. Maybe he's a good player, but he's just like a little bit, he's down. He's not showing the character that he is when he came from Cape Town to play for Orlando Pirates, then going to Amazulu. There is a lot of good players that are not showing up at Amazulu. So I don't know if maybe it's because of the coach for him to be fired or players didn't want the coach to be there. But for me, Amazulu can always do better.
Talking about players showing up, big game to look forward to. The final of the MTN 8 players have to show up. And so far, they've shown up this season. Both these sides have had a great start to the season. They've been the busiest sides in South African football. And it's a great setup for this final. Stellenbosch and the Pirates.
Manje head-to-head, the last 5 games, Stelis have had 3 better than the Pirates, where Pirates had 2 against Stelis. So going now, if you look at their head-to-head, which is something good about both teams, in 8 games, both teams have got where the games where they've won, I think, in a row, conceding few goals on each, but scoring more. But I think Stelis got 1 more than Pirates. But one thing good, it's like, it's a cup game where they are going to. to play, later on today. So let's see how does it fare. But for me, it's going to be good a cup final namhlanje. So let's see, because uma sibuka still is umuntu ebekahlupha iPirate kakhulu ule kuSundowns manje.
Ngiyahlupha la Sundowns. Yahlupha la
for Sundowns. But let's hope Pirates, not hope, I wish.
Yeah, you wish.
I wish.
Well, I'll tell you what, I wish for a good game, and I'm sure many in South Africa will be wishing for a good game, no matter who wins, of course.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It promises to be a final to look forward to when you consider these could be possibly the best teams since the start of the season, since they are also the busiest and representing us on the continent. Thank you very much, James Kosana. On the other side of this, we, have had two strikers that are legends for scoring goals. We'll have a legend for stopping goals. Coming up, that's Roger Desar. Well, thank you for joining us once again on Game On Now. We promised you, following the two legendary strikers, a special interview with a legendary goalkeeper who's also gone on to do some sterling work as a coach in giving to the beautiful game, the beautifully South African game. That, of course, is Roger Desar, who joins us. Roger, thank you so much for your time. Haven't seen you in a very long time. Tell us, where are you and how have you been?
Hi, first of all, thanks very much for the invite. It's great to be with you. I've been hearing your voice a couple of times, and I kind of know what you look like now. Yeah, I'm back in Cape Town, back home. It's been 4 or 5 years of crazy traveling and different countries, different continents. A fantastic experience. It's been fantastic for me. World Cup and Cup of Nations, Asian Cups, and whatever you want to call it, and. It's been good. Some top players, some top countries, and meeting some great people. And good to be back home.
It's interesting to see the journey from a coaching point of view, and not forgetting that you were a player who also did a lot internationally as well, but from just a coaching point of view, several clubs in South Africa and several journeys there and stories to tell. But like you say, there's the Champions League, there's your work abroad as well. Where would you say you've had your best time as a coach, or is it too soon to ask that question still yet?
No, it's definitely the right time. I'm considering maybe this is enough now, but look, every chapter has got story. Every chapter has got something that you meet and some experiences that you go through. Look, in my opinion, the World Cup is definitely the top. I mean, it's when you get to the World Cup and you're competing there and you're participating in that tournament, it's definitely it's just the epic. It's the top that you can reach, and you can feel it. All the players are good. There's no bad players in the World Cup. Everybody who's there is just sort of a notch above the rest. The organization, the way it's run, and everything else. So for me, the World Cup's been a fantastic experience. But then again, obviously, there's being an African. You kind of go to the African Cup of Nations, and it's like in Cameroon or whatever country you go to, and it's wow, something totally different. Then you can see the total diversity of top to bottom, when you get to those competitions as well. And but everywhere you go, it's been great. I mean, I worked in Iran, with the national team of Iran, and that was a good experience too. Egypt is something else. I mean, the vibe in Egypt is unbelievable. You got to be there to believe it, to understand it, and you got to work there day in, day out. And when you work for the national team of Egypt, you actually realize what it's like to work for a proper national team. You can see everyone supports the national team. A little bit like the Springboks at the moment, I would say. It's like, it's sort of it's unbelievable. It's a great feeling, and Egypt for me was great. It was a great experience. I love the people, and of course Qatar was, the money. It's unbelievable how they just sort of pay for everything, and they've been able to put on a fantastic World Cup, and to be able to experience all that, and obviously Portugal as well, and then of course back home South Africa, it's been great. I mean, that's where my real roots are and all my mates are, and then it's so good to be back home.
Well, over the years, we've always spoken about South African players going abroad. We're enjoying a rich period now for South African coaches where so many of you guys, more than usual, I think, over the years, have spent some time in North Africa, out in the Qatars of the world as such. Peter Mosimane, another, Fadlu, another, and so many others as well. What is it about this current period in South African coaches and the ability to go and play your trade abroad?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people ask me that question. They're like, well, what did you do? And, I arrived in, my first overseas trip was Portugal, and my first job was to put Ronaldo through the paces. And then you go, what did you do? I said, I just did exactly what I did to Joe Shabalala and Joe Smith. There's no difference. And I think if you just carry on doing the same thing, they really, there's nothing wrong with the work we do. It's actually very, very good. We're very good professionals, South Africans in general. If you go all over the world, not only do you see coaches, you see South Africans of all trades, pilots, doctors, engineers, whatever, mechanics, you name it, builders, and they're all there, and they work hard, and they're well respected really all over the world. There's not a place I went to that a South African tradesman was not respected. And it's no different being a football coach. I think we apply ourselves well. We've got a good work ethic. In general, we're good with people, I think, because we've got such a diverse country that we've learned to become good with people. And I think that helps us a lot too.
Now, I have to ask you from an African point of view, having gone through all the different stages, of course, from league football here in South Africa to Champions Leagues or CAF competitions, AFCONs, World Cups, how far are we from competing now from an African point of view with the best in the world?
Look, in some areas, I believe we're very, very close. We're there, but there are other areas that I think we're still lacking. Of course, I think our development structures have a long way to go. We all know that. We keep saying that, but we don't really do too much about it. And I think we've got a fantastic example of our rugby, and we should just emulate the rugby structures of the schools, the top schools, how they manage these young kids who go to top high schools. They get really looked after. They come out of school, 1 meter 90, 120 kilos with a fantastic education with about 5 or 6 contract options to go to. And I think that's what rugby's done really, really well. We're in the football world, we're still concentrating so much on the top level, as called the PSL, that from there down, it's such a massive steps down that, our development has really got a long way to go. And that's what I found in other countries, like even Iran and Egypt, for example. Their development structures are pretty good. And that's why they keep producing, a very good national team and top players to go play abroad in Europe. And
I have to then ask you, sorry to jump in there, but I have to ask you of the initiative we've seen from CAF and the CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, over the last 2-3 years, where he's implemented CAF schools because in trying to aid in development. And basically what he said is he's taking the rugby formula in South Africa, where schools plays a big part in it, and applying it to school competitions all across the continent, where the South gets their best winners, the North and so on, and then they all play in one big tournament at the end of the tournament, so to speak. What do you think of that initiative from CAF to try and improve in the development side that you speak of?
Oh, look, it's obviously it's a starting point. It's trying to emulate something that's really worked, which is fantastic to see. But I think if you want to compare us to rugby, it's the structures in rugby are really down to the roots level. I mean, you go to a rugby school and you ask them to put up a soccer field, you'll get kicked out so quickly. You'll get arrested. You got no chance. And that's because of the history and everything else that's gone into it. So we're far away from that still. What we don't have, unfortunately, is we don't have sort of our top clubs really putting a lot of effort into our development structures. Why? Because it's cheaper to go into Central Africa and buy another player.
Sure.
So you get that a lot, especially in Africa. There's so much talent. So you go, why must I spend 5 years working with 20 kids, and I don't even know how many of those 20 are going to make it, when I can just go into Central Africa with half the money and I'll bring 5 ready-made, fantastic players done. I don't have to spend all that time and effort. So it becomes a little bit of a business scenario, and you can't blame them for thinking that way. Until the time comes where clubs get sort of paid back for their own development structures and developing their own talent. As South African clubs, you should get a bonus. You should get a tax exemption or whatever if you can produce local talent, as opposed to playing 5 foreigners and another 3 that have already become South Africans. That's not going to help us. You got to give him some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, so that clubs or companies or the industries or whatever produce local talent, and we got to go that way, and we're not doing it. It's still too easy to jump over the border and bring ready-made stuff. It's far too easy, and that's what club owners do. And I'm sure if I was a club owner, I would also look at it that way.
Since the 90s, you've given a lot to the game as a player, then as a coach, and you still continue to. Long may your success continue with the game. And thank you so much for your time, Raj.